In this tutorial, we will see how to compare multiple sites using factor ratings. Most approaches to comparing multiple sites look at only a very narrow set of criteria. For example, a financial comparison only looks at cost and revenues, and locational cost-profit volume analysis only looks at fixed and variable costs. Factor ratings can look as many factors as you wish. Additionally, it can include both qualitative and quantitative factors. The steps to performing a factor rating comparison are as follows. 1. Decide on which factors to use. In general, 4 to 8 factors work best, but this is not a requirement. Note that each factor must be positive. That is, a higher score has to be better. For example, if crime was to be a factor, a higher score would be worse. Rather than using crime as a factor, we would need to use absence of crime as the factor. 2. Assign a weight to each factor based on its relative importance when compared to the other factors. A weight with a higher score is more important. While not required, many textbooks require that the weights sum to 1, and we will stick with that convention in this tutorial. 3. Decide on a common scale to use for all the factors. That is, 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 100. The more common are 1 to 10 and 1 to 100, but any scale works. All factors must be rated on the same scale. The wider the scale, the more granularity it gives you. We will use 1 to 100 in this tutorial. 4. Score each location on each factor. Many times, more than one rater is used, and each score on each factor is averaged to develop a composite score. 5. Compute the overall score for each location. For this, we simply multiply each factor weight by the score for each factor and then sum the results for each location. 6. Make a decision. The higher the score, the better, so we want to choose the location with the highest score. However, since the ratings are subjective, small differences in overall score are not really meaningful. We will see how to use factor ratings with an example. A small local coffee chain is considering 2 different locations for a new branch. They have identified 5 factors. 1. Lack of competition, weighted at 0.20. 2. Traffic volume at this location, weighted at 0.50. 3. Cost of the space they would be renting at each location, weighted at 0.15. Remember, we must assign a higher score to locations that are cheaper. 4. Operating cost at each location, weighted at 0.10. As with space costs, we must assign a higher score to locations with lower operating costs. 5. The layout of the available space, weighted at 0.05. The scores for the 2 locations are shown on the slide. Which is the better alternative? For location number 1, 0.20 times 85 equals 17.00. 0.50 times 75 equals 37.50. 0.15 times 50 equals 7.50. 0.10 times 40 equals 4.00. 0.05 times 90 equals 4.50. These values sum to 70.50. For location 2, 0.20 times 75 equals 15.00. 0.50 times 85 equals 42.50. 0.15 times 65 equals 9.75. 0.10 times 70 equals 7.00. 0.05 times 60 equals 3.00. These values sum to 77.25. Since location number 2 has the higher score, it is the better alternative. A local barber is planning to move to one of 2 possible locations. Each location is in a strip shopping center. They have identified 5 factors. 1. The cost of renting the space, weighted at 0.45. 2. The cost of renovating the space to be a barber shop, weighted at 0.25. Remember, lower cost must be a higher rating. 3. The amount of foot traffic in the shopping center, weighted at 0.15. 4. The amount of automobile traffic on the main street feeding the shopping center, weighted at 0.10. 5. Operating costs for the location, weighted at 0.05. Remember, lower costs must get a higher rating. The scores for the 2 locations are shown on the slide. Which is the better alternative? Since you've seen an example already, let me suggest that you pause the video and try to work this problem on your own. Once you're done, you can use the video to check your work and spot any mistakes you might have made. For location 1, 0.45 times 90 equals 40.50. 0.25 times 85 equals 21.25. 0.15 times 65 equals 9.75. 0.10 times 30 equals 3.00. 0.05 times 80 equals 4.00. These values sum to 78.5. For location number 2, 0.45 times 70 equals 31.50. 0.25 times 70 equals 17.50. 0.15 times 50 equals 7.50. 0.10 times 90 equals 9.00. 0.05 times 70 equals 3.50. These values sum to 69.00, so location number 1 is the better alternative. If this video helped you working operations management problems, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel.